Now, this time I wanted to talk to you a little bit about bullying and how to prepare your child for situations that may come up in regards to bullying that may occur. The beginning of the school year is actually a really tenuous time for children, largely because they're going into this new environment or they're going into an environment that they had previously been in the year before, and they're meeting new people. And sometimes that may cause some discomfort for some children, and sometimes discomfort results in children acting out or actually teasing or playing around with children. Now, I'm not going to be very popular with this blog as far as bullying is concerned because I have some very strong views about bullying and how to work through it. I've worked with a lot of parents who have a lot of different ideas about what to do when your child is feeling like they're bullied. I encourage all parents to talk to their children about what has happened during that day. So a lot of parents will say, "So how was school?" And the child will say, "Good," and then leave it at that. So my challenge for parents is to actually follow up their response with a follow-up question. So tell me, how was it good? Okay, so you're actually asking them very specific questions that require them to give you more than just a blanket answer like yes or no. So saying things like, well, tell me how it was good or tell me how it was bad. And then usually children will, depending on their age, will defer and want to give you just one answer back. Well, it was good because blah. And then they'll leave it at that. So my recommendation is to follow up again with another question. Now, these questions are super helpful because you're going to get a sense and a feel for how their child is feeling about what's happening at school. Whatever they start to talk about will be of interest to them. And so you want to talk a little bit more about that. Notice patterns of behaviors that change over the school year or during the first couple of weeks of school. Does your child come home and immediately retreat and want to isolate themselves and be alone? Are they talkative? Are they friendly? Do you notice a change in the way that they dress, the way that they behave, wanting to sleep more? Those type of behaviors are things that are red flags, and you want to be aware of those things, and you want to ask continually more questions, largely because most children will not come out and say, "I'm being bullied at school." So your job as a parent is to just continually ask questions every day, delve into what's happening, how they're feeling about school, teachers that they like, friends, activities that are happening around there, and just get all this information that you can. If you start to notice some changes in behaviors, that's when you start to ask some very specific questions about what is happening. And actually, you may want to reach out to a teacher or a school administrator or a counselor to find out if there's something happening at the school that you're unaware of. Another thing that parents nowadays need to be aware of is the social media aspect of how children are interacting with each other. So if your child has a device, likely other children in the school, even as young as elementary age children, they are on devices and they may be on social media. You have no say over what parents are going to allow their children to do, but they're in an environment where children may be on social media. So if your child is on social media, you'll want to check their social media accounts to see. Now, some parents say, leave that alone, that's their own area. I highly discourage that. I think parents have a responsibility to be aware of what's happening in their child's lives, and they need to be actively engaged in where their children are. We would never send our children out into the world and not ask questions about where they are and who they're interacting with. And the same should be said about social media. We should know who they're talking to online, and we should know who they're interacting with. Once you realize all those things, if you find out that your child is being bullied, then you as a parent need to take some very specific actions. My recommendations for all parents when their children are being bullied is to step in. That is going to make me super unpopular with some parents who have this idea that children need to learn from bullying situations and deal with it, that these things actually will make them stronger. Actually, in my experience and with the people that I've worked with in families and working with adult clients, who have been bullied as teenagers or even younger, my experience is that it actually causes more harm in the long run. Now, you may be wondering why. Children who are developing and they're still learning to gain a sense of self and self-worth and self-esteem, they're ill-equipped to deal with bullying on their own, right? Now, we call it bullying because we're talking about children, but in reality, we call it something different as we get older. As adults, we call it harassment. Now, as adults, we have laws in place to correct harassment. If I was in a work environment where I was feeling like I was being harassed, I have a human resources department that I would go to and let them know, and they would resolve it, sometimes at the expense of costing the other person their job. Now, we have put in place all these things as adults to deal with harassment or bullying. For my own daughter, we've made it very clear if she ever feels like she's being bullied, that's when it's me and my wife's responsibility as parents to step in. Her job is to go to school and to get an education. She should feel safe in that environment, and she shouldn't have to deal with any type of bullying. So we would go in and speak with the school administration and let them know what's going on and have them make corrections. Now, if they are unable, because unlike an adult who we have very specific laws about harassment, if the school does not address the bullying situation, and I've seen it happen before, then we as parents have to take steps to make corrections on our own. And if that means moving my child to a different school, I will absolutely do that. Why? Because she shouldn't have to go to school and deal with that. That is not what school is about. Now, school is about social interactions and learning to get along, but harassment is not a place that has any place in schools. And I've dealt with a lot of parents who feel like, well, we should just let kids be kids. It's a tenuous and a dangerous time for children, especially as they're developing, to let them deal with something of this magnitude. Now, as adults, we don't like to see harassment happen to other adults, and actually we won't put up with it, but that's because we're developed. We know who we are, we have a sense of self, and we know what's right and wrong. For children, it's a little difficult because they're still feeling their way through the world, and they're still discovering how to work through things. A recommendation for parents who are dealing with bullying as an issue: work with school administration first. If school administration is not resolving the issue to the satisfaction of your child's well-being, then you need to find alternative ways to deal with it. And I'm not saying break any laws or anything, but possibly removing your child into a different school district, if at all possible, or finding a different arrangement that can be made. Bullying in school. As these kids are getting ready, watch for the signs, and I've talked about those at the beginning, but also be aware that you have a role as a parent to step in and deal with that. You want to protect your children as long as they need protection, and as young children, they need protection. As far as bullying goes, be aware that you have to take an active role as a parent to prevent bullying, and being able to step into those spaces where you need to step in to protect your child from those things. It's a different world. A lot of the parents that I've dealt with who have said we should just let kids be kids were parents at a time when things were a lot different growing up. We didn't have social media where bullying can be spread through the whole environment of the school. Usually it was contained into groups of friendships. Now it can be spread everywhere, and it can remain there for a long time, which is why it needs to stop as soon as you find out. Ask questions, be involved and engaged in your child's life. Talk to them about what to look for, and let them know and set the boundary that if bullying does occur, that you will step in. We'll have more information on our blog regarding this. But again, bullying is a very serious thing. It affects people who have been bullied. It affects them throughout the rest of their lives, and you don't want to set your child up for that. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our blog for more information, and the Smarter Parenting website for the skill of preventive teaching, which is a skill that will help you in starting this conversation.